Live, and are we ready to go live? And the video's on? Yes. All right, good. Okay, cool. All right, then I'll go ahead and without go ahead and start us off and have the Planning Commission come to order, and we'll have a roll call.
Chair Lane.
Here.
Commissioner Tonelli.
Here.
Commissioner Sokolow.
Here.
Commissioner Lerner.
Here.
Commissioner Lamb is excused.
Okay, good. And now the next item on the agenda is public comment for things that are not on the agenda. So this is where people bring up things that come at a future meeting or bring us highlight something to us. So I'm going through the process just so those of you who haven't been here before, so you actually know how to do this next time. All right. So if there's anyone here to speak on an item that's not on the agenda tonight, you can come forward now. I think everybody here is from PG&E or staff, and we'll go ahead and we'll close that item public comment section, and then go for the review and approval of the minutes. So there's only 3 of us that can vote on this one. All right, anything there that needs to be reviewed up? They're very thorough in terms of the way it was picked up.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for the detail.
Yeah.
Back.
Yes. Okay, I need a motion.
Move that we pass the minutes of August 24th, 2016 as written and presented.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain. And 1 abstention. All right, there we go. Approved. And then we'll go on to the public hearing items. And I understand that item 4A is the applicant has requested that we continue it. Is that correct?
Yes, the applicant for 56 Holbrook has requested a continuance to the October 26th, 2016 Planning Commission hearing in order to allow himself, his architect, the town arborist, and planning staff some more time to further develop and get a better understanding of what his intention is in terms of development of the property as it may or may not relate to the tree in question.
Okay, good. So I'm going to officially open the public hearings in case there's anyone here that wants to speak on this item, and then we'll close the public hearing, and then if no one has anything to say, and then we'll bring it back for continuous to a date specific. All right. So I'll open the public hearing on item 4A because it was posted and announced. So we want to make sure that we give an opportunity for someone to speak on it. Is there anyone here to speak on item 4A tonight? There isn't anyone, so I will go ahead. Or do you want to open on 4A? Yeah,
oh, 4A, sorry.
Okay, good. You can if you want to. All right, good. There's no one here to speak on item 4A, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and then we need a motion to continue this to, is there a specific date or not?
Yes, to the October 26th Planning Commission meeting.
Okay. I need a motion to continue to October 26th.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Okay, that's a 4-0. Go ahead then, and let's go to item 4B. And 4B, C, D, E are all related to actions that PG&E is suggesting. So what I thought we'd do is to go get the staff overview, then we'll get an overview from the applicant overall, and then we'll go into each individual item so that we approve them individually. We also have some legal advice tonight so that we get our full value out of our legal staff on this one, just so we know where we are in this process, all right, because this is a unique situation. So I'll go with the staff report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll give the brief overview of the 4 items that are in front of you for consideration tonight. And then, Jen, if you wouldn't mind jumping in and giving that overview of the legal component that's associated with these 4 application requests. And then when we open each item discussion, I'll get into more of the specifics in terms of the trees themselves as they relate to each individual property. So items 4B, C, D, and E are all heritage tree removal requests by PG&E. All of these tree removal requests are associated with PG&E's Community Pipeline Safety Initiative. Specifically, these trees are found to not meet their standards in terms of best practice for pipeline maintenance. These trees are located very close to the underground pipeline, thus their requests for removal. The town arborist has reviewed PG&E's request, and all of the trees in front of you for these 4 properties have been determined to not be either dead nor dangerous. I'll get into the specifics of the trees and the replantings that are recommended by our town arborists and have been reviewed and agreed upon by PG&E by individual property. But at this point, I'd like to have our town council give an overview of the legalities associated with PG&E's applications.
There we go.
Sure, so for some of you who have already had this, I appreciate your patience, but I think given what's before us tonight and the number, I think it is good to just refresh it. It's a really unique circumstance that we don't run into. I've never had a circumstance like this where we're asking you for something that you don't normally do. So the normal procedure, somebody comes forth and you have the ability to control the process and the outcome and say yes or no. This is a different circumstance and it's complicated in a number of ways. So basically, PG&E has an independent right to come in and remove those trees. There were a lot of them at issue and a lot of work that was coming all at once, and I think very wisely they agreed to go along with our town's tree removal process out of respect to, you know, the way that we value trees here and the way the process works and the homeowners and all of that. But it is voluntary compliance with the tree removal process. So it creates a bizarre situation where Sally might review something and she's reviewing it per our usual ordinance, which would say, you know, is it diseased or decayed? Is it, you know, a protected species? Those sort of things. And it might be that if this were a usual circumstance, she would recommend denial of the application. However, and so I've asked her to go ahead and just do that. In a bubble, look at that tree and let's just talk about that tree. However, when Sally denies that, and I do believe that's the case here, that is for your average application, that is not for the PG&E circumstance where, to be frank, you do not have the ability to really deny it. I mean, they're voluntarily complying. I'm not 100% sure exactly what that would mean if push came to shove, but staff looks at this as an opportunity for you to be a part of the process, to make it better than it might otherwise be, to mitigate where, you know, help make it better and to make it not quite as drastic as it could otherwise be, the removal of so many trees in our town. I'll be here happy to answer any questions, but if we could think about it as an opportunity to work with them, collaboration, as versus a pure, you have the right to approve or deny, it's not that classic situation that we deal with monthly.
So it's merely just a part of the process at this point.
Yeah, the process is just different. We're not really looking for a can they, can't they, because
Right.
they can.
I get it.
But I think it's, you know, are they being respectful and what are they putting in its place and where is that going and how does the property owner feel about it? And I think if we can work with that, it could actually be something good.
So if we were to hypothetically deny anything, what does that add to their process of getting this done? Or does it lengthen their process? How does it affect
Yeah.
the process of them accomplishing what they need to do?
We don't have an agreement in place. We have an offer and an acceptance
I got
verbally.
it. Okay.
So it would create layers of difficulty, and
Okay.
you would say to them, okay, we have this problem, how are we gonna do this? And I understand, you know, they've come and made many presentations, I understand that they're willing to work with the town, and I think, you know, there's a lot of public relations issues here, and I think if they continue to work with everybody, hopefully we can just keep this going nicely. So I'm hoping it won't come to that, we would have to figure that out
Okay.
if that happened.
I think that for me, it's a combination of things. First of all, it's a public hearing, so people can come and say, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that we can review it and say, hey, this doesn't make sense to us. Like we went through the process over here on the corner, on the tree that was over in the corner of Middlefield,
Mm-hmm.
where we said, hey, does this make sense? And we sort of got some context around it. And also it was on record, the dialogue. And all those things are all part of the sort of growing story of, does anybody, you know, care about how the community wants this to work? And it also is part of, I think, that PG&E is also a process of sort of like, just rather than coming in and putting things down and just doing them, sort of engaging in the discussion of how a community wants to handle itself with PG&E. So,
Mhm.
but also, it's also incumbent upon us to realize this can be a safety issue if we don't handle it properly. You know, so we want to make sure we balance that.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Anything else? Any questions of staff before we turn it over to the applicant? All right, then we'll open up the public hearing and we'll start with the applicant. Now is a good time to show up.
kind of jumped the gun there. Thank you for the time this evening. My name again is Bill Chang. I'm your PG&E Public Affairs Representative for the southern part of the peninsula. Thank you for having us here tonight and giving us the time to be able to appear before you. I'm sorry?
I thought you had a new title. Was Public Affairs is the new title?
Public Affairs is the new title.
Okay, good.
Yes. Easier to spell.
Yeah.
So thank you for the time tonight, so we can appear before you and answer any questions regarding our applications in fulfillment of our promise to follow your ordinance and the spirit of your ordinance, to be here and out of respect for this body. I also wanted to take this opportunity to let you know what's been done in Atherton. You know about the tree on Middlefield because we're here talking about it, but actually starting in, let me go through some notes here. We started our actual tree work back in November of 2015. And so from, from November of 2015 through the earlier part of September 9th, 10th, we've actually completed 10 properties in Atherton, removing a total of 42 trees. So that's our work for now, and I wanted to just, for your context, the entire universe of properties in Atherton is 46. So of the 46, we've completed 10, including the high school. And of the remaining 36, 24 properties have trees that we define as manageable. So those trees can stay exactly where they are. We have no need to touch them. That leaves 12. And of the 12, 6 we're still talking to them regarding their trees, any kind of agreements we can come to. Then that leaves the remaining 6. Of that remaining 6, 4 are on the agenda tonight, and that leaves 2 that we're continuing to talk to. We expect to be back in the near future with those 2.
Good. That's a good overview. That's what we have.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's why I'm standing here, to
All
make
right,
sure we
good.
got the numbers.
All right, good. That's good. That's what we asked for, was a sort of the view of the scale and things like that. That's perfect.
And I want to thank your town council for that legal overview. I'm not a lawyer, but thank you for saying that. If I can dovetail on her comments, it really is a safety issue, and the precedents set by the legislature was to help ensure the safe operation of utilities, not just here in Northern California, but throughout California. So it's not just us, but it also includes San Diego Gas and Electric. I guess they're under a different name now, but also Southern California Edison, and so it really becomes a safety issue in terms of there may or may not be, and this is the legislature anticipating this, there may or may not be some communities where the tree ordinance or other ordinance are discretionary in nature, and so when it comes to a safety issue or safety topic, the legislature wanted to make sure that the discretionary aspect, or sometimes the emotional aspect of a discretionary permit, does not complicate a safety issue regarding a utility.
Right.
Not that Atherton would ever do that. It's just, that's
Right.
just a general overview.
Right. Good. Can I? Go ahead.
No,
I have a
please.
question.
Yeah.
A question on the 24 manageable.
Mhm.
Just the definition of manageable, just so we understand what that means.
In general terms, a manageable tree is a tree that we've looked at, we've measured, we've assessed, and based on, I think it's 12 or 13 different factors, including species, depth of cover, location, that tree can stay exactly where it is and live a long, healthy life. And one of the ways that we assessed a manageable tree is we took a look at location, species, and all of that, and we kind of modeled it out that if that particular tree in that particular location enjoyed perfect weather, all the fertilizer it ever needed, and grew to a full mature tree, what would that have an effect? What kind of effect would that have on our nearby pipeline? And we determined that the effect is manageable, and so therefore that tree doesn't have to be removed. The only request is that if and when, or when that tree does die, for whatever cause, that it's not replanted in the same exact place.
Okay. And who will control that?
It really is the homeowner. We talk to the property owner of when it comes to those manageable trees.
Yeah, and part of what we're doing is we are walking the pipe every year. We come back, we assess the health of the tree. Is the tree declining? Is the tree dead? The two big factors in our thing is the tree dead? So age is not a factor. The second thing is soil instability, and that's it's really, if we have an earthquake or anything like that, that would be the other thing. And those are really the only two big factors that would make a tree go from manageable to unacceptable.
Or a flood or something like that?
Yeah, flood. Yeah, but it's whatever really affects the soil.
Right, okay.
Can I ask a question? But these manageable trees are within the 10 feet on either
Yeah.
side? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's because of the species and the root growth that they.
And in some cases, we've had a couple individual property owners that wanted manageable trees out as well because they said they wanted to have that sense of safety. And that's when we were coming to the city and saying there are some people that replace trees, there's some people that aren't. We are here, we have the funds to be able to mitigate, and we want to help mitigate. There are some people with the way the easement works on their property, they may not be able to fit a tree, so we're here to say we are gonna offer extra trees to the city so that we'll keep the tree canopy and those kinds of things. So as we discuss these 4 locations today and looking at the kind of mitigation that goes into it, we can always, add to the mitigation so we're keeping the tree canopy.
And
we're
just for
open
the
to do-
recording and the record, would you go ahead and say your name and?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Darren Klein with PG&E. I'm with the Community Pipeline Safety Initiative, Public Affairs.
All right, yeah.
So, a couple of questions. 42 trees have been taken down so far, did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you've come before us one time before with the tree on Middlefield.
Correct.
So I'm assuming the other 41 were non-heritage trees?
Correct.
Yes,
Is that safe to assume?
yes, they went to your arborist.
So they were approved
Yeah,
at
they went
staff
through
level.
your, at staff level and
Yeah.
went through your process.
This wasn't a middle of the night thing.
No, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure I had all the numbers
Mhm.
proper. How many more on Walsh Road, other than these 4, are either have been taken down or are slated to be removed? Do you have that at all?
I don't have that
We don't
number, but I
have-
can
yeah,
get you
we can get
Walsh
that.
Road in particular.
Because I would imagine there were a number of heritage or non-heritage trees.
Oh, are you asking how many of the 42 were on Walsh Road?
Well, I'm just wondering, there's 4 tonight before us,
Mhm.
essentially on Walsh Road, that one in Valley.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how many non-heritage trees were approved at staff level on Walsh Road, if you know.
We can get that for you.
Well, I wouldn't, so anything that's non-heritage, I'm not really reviewing.
Oh, okay.
You guys can just take it out, it's like
Because
everything else.
I wouldn't review that anyway,
Right,
in general, unless it's a heritage tree.
right.
And when and sometimes they have applied for non-heritage, I just say I'm not,
Yeah.
it's okay.
But we've kept track of the trees. We can figure out those trees that have been replaced and what that mitigation should be. We can get you a number
Mhm.
of those trees. We have an Excel spreadsheet that lists all of the trees, and we can just click them off for you.
Yeah, just because I know that there was, at the beginning, there was a huge concern about Walsh Road. That was.
There was a huge
We
concern-
talked about this last time you were
Yeah.
here, about how that just kind of grew out of proportion.
Yes.
The big number was 600.
The big number was 600. Yeah, I was gonna
I
say.
know that.
The big number was
The
600.
big number was 600, and that's
Yeah,
and that's where we were trying to say we're assessing those trees. We want everybody to understand. We first came in front of City Council over a year ago so that we could have these conversations, and that's what we've been continually having, and that's why we've been able to do work so far on 10 different locations. And I don't know if anybody's ever called you to complain or anything like that, but I feel that's a testament to the outreach that we've been doing, the outreach that the folks that are here. And we are always bringing our full team here, the PG&E bus, as you say, because we want to make sure, these are the faces of people that are talking to folks in your community. And we wanted to have that consistent face because we realize the emotionality of the trees.
And the other question I have is, what is or what has been the process that you use with the property owners if you have to remove trees on their property?
It starts with a door knock or a phone call. And
Okay,
we
so
visit.
for instance, tonight with the 4 cases before us, how has that gone? Can you kind of give us an overview of how that process has gone, what it's been?
It starts with a visit, a phone call, an appointment, and we go to their house or their property, and we look at the trees together on their property, and we start with a conversation. And the conversation really starts very similar to the conversation that we had with you and with your council. That we introduce the program, tell them what it's about. Sometimes we actually have to remind them that there's a transmission pipeline on their property, and that sometimes that catches them by surprise. So we go through the whole process, and it often takes more than 2-3 visits. And eventually the PG&E team, led by Emily, and the property owner will come to an agreement, and that is memorialized in a legal document and signed by both sides. And if it involves a heritage tree, then we're here to talk about if the heritage tree, and if it doesn't, then we'll schedule work.
And there's a little bit difference, I think, in each one of these, and one of them is way back in the property owner's backyard, and there's others around the perimeter, and one house is for sale, and 3 of them go down, they may or may not care about it, so there's gonna be a little bit different dialogue every time, I think, which is also part of the reason we're getting it, in the sort of sequence you're giving it to us as you get the resolution of the owners.
Right, and in certain cases, for example, if a property owner, and not just an applicant, but if a property, we'll go to a property owner, say, and talk to them and let them know that your 5, 6, 3 trees are manageable. We don't have to take them. A property owner might say, "Great, but I want you to take them," or "I want you to take that one."
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends on what the property owner. He might say, "I just bought this house and I've never liked that tree. Please take it."
And then what do you do in the mitigation in that situation?
Again, that's all negotiated within the document.
Within that, and then when it comes to replacement trees that don't hit your ordinance, we are taking a catalog of those trees and mitigating with the city.
Right, that's what I want to make sure.
And that's why when you look at some of these tonight, if you feel that the mitigation or what they've been doing for restoration doesn't necessarily reach what you're looking for, we're here to discuss, well, what extra mitigation can we do and what works for the city when it comes to that mitigation.
Good, that's good. Yes, go ahead.
In the interest of prevention, I'm thinking down the road to when homeowners might want to put in a tree, not necessarily to replace one that was taken out because of the pipeline, but because they don't realize
Yep.
the pipeline is there. How do you prevent this kind of thing happening again in 10 or 20 years? Is there a process they must go through to plant any tree? Certain
yes.
size trees, or can you just briefly tell us
It
what will happen?
we could do it.
Well, first off, because this is a public meeting, we have to begin with, before you dig, please call 811, no matter where on your property that you are going to
Look at the
dig.
camera when you say
I was gonna say,
that.
please call 811 before
That
you
is
dig.
actually is probably the best way because not just PG&E will send someone out, but all the other utilities, including the city, if the city is running a sewer or a water system, will send out, mark the lines that are in the area where the property owner wants to dig, and perhaps mark out a line that the property owner didn't realize was there, and therefore prevent a situation, not just a gas line, but I mean, it could be water, sewer, telecommunications, electric. It becomes a bad afternoon if you hit any of that.
It's voluntary then for the homeowner to comply with the call before you dig, and if they don't, then
Yes.
theoretically at least, there could be
Yeah.
another big tree someday causing trouble.
It's voluntary for the
Know about
homeowner,
it.
but
Or
state
that-
law does require commercial contractors to call.
Yes,
okay.
and we also want you to know is, and I think we may have mentioned this when we met with you last, we are around this pipeline a lot. Somebody is walking this line once a year. We fly over it with a helicopter every 5 weeks, and we're making sure that if somebody does plant a tree within those 5 weeks, we are calling them up. The way our team works in the helicopters is the person who's not flying will text and say, "We see this going on." And we have teams on the ground that then drive up. I was personally on one where somebody pulled up in a very busy street with a backhoe and ripped up part of the concrete without an encroachment permit, without nothing. And it was 4 feet from a gas transmission main.
Boom.
And we texted down, and our guys came up on them. We got the city involved. This was over in the city of Berkeley, believe it or not. And we are a lot more aggressive when it comes to those kinds of things. So we're gonna be calling those out. Our biggest risk we see after these trees are saplings. We know that when they're saplings and small trees, they're not a risk to the pipe, but we want to get them now, before they become a big tree. So our the maintenance phases that we are instilling right now should be able to catch this.
Those flyovers also catch structures.
Yeah, structures as well and buildings. And I will tell you, we've been in other communities on the peninsula where some people have started planting trees again. I mean, 6 months after we discovered them, came and had a conversation with them, and went, oh, that's right, you spoke to us 6 months ago. Because we know when, as developers come in and you deal with those kinds of issues. And that's why we also ask that on your permitting applications, please put a call before you dig 811 on there. Have they complied? Do they have a USA ticket number? It's things like that that even I've noticed as I've been doing this program, we haven't been aggressive in helping to work with cities to make sure that stuff like that happens.
Since we're on the topic, the 811 topic, statistically, the greatest threat to an underground facility is unfortunately the homeowner with a shovel.
Yeah.
Many home projects, planting a tree, putting in a mailbox, don't require a permit, and so the homeowner is not thinking about calling or getting a permit. It's a weekend project, and just one bad move can turn a bad afternoon.
I think last time we talked about the fact that most parcels recorded at the assessor's office, the county office, do not have pipelines indicated. I think we talked about some do, most don't, and there's really no coordinating agency or effort within the county to assure that that kind of information does get transferred to the county and onto maps and parcels. Is PG&E working on that at all?
Well, if there's an easement on a parcel, that it's indicated there's a utility easement, but it's buried on page 175 of the real estate documents, and sometimes it just says utility easement, and it doesn't say what kind of easement. Could be underground, could be overhead. If the realtor wants to do that level of detail work and advise the buyer of what kind of easement it is, if it's an underground easement, if it's an overhead easement, that really up to the realtor.
No, and that's the problem that we've had, and why we feel that we need to do extra outreach, why we have 3 people in the back. Because we met real estate agents in San Mateo County that said when we see PG&E easement on there and we see a gas stove, well, that's why, it's for that. And no, that's not it. And there's different, because of a gas transmission main. So we went and spoke to the realtors here in the county, and we're speaking to all realtors in all the different counties to make sure that they understand that this is what a PG&E utility easement means. We have been mailing out gas safety newsletters all throughout the county, especially to people within 1,000 and 2,000 feet of the pipe. Federally, we're supposed to do that like once every 5 years. We've been doing that about every 4 or 5 months now, over the last 2 years, to try to up the awareness.
Do you have any plans, or are you considering at all working with the county?
We work with the county on a regular basis when it comes to that. We're one of the only utilities in the country that has what are called public safety supervisors. And they go and meet with the fire chiefs at least once a year. We actually meet with them twice a year at this point. We share the information on where the pipeline is, and now we're encouraging local government to work with their fire chiefs to know exactly where the pipe is. If anybody ever wants to know where a transmission line is, you can go to the PG&E website to pipeline safety location or type in gas transmission line, and there is a website where you can type in your address and see if you're next to a gas transmission pipeline. It's not a view of the pipeline that you could do planning and development with, but you can find out as an average citizen how close are you to a pipeline. And then we need to take that a step further, working with cities and working with planning departments and everything else to say, okay, let's create a buffer zone here. And we know that there's a gas transmission main here. And we've been doing that since we started the program 3 years ago. And it's funny, we were in San Benito County, which is growing because of all the housing, that's coming in. And the public works director there was just like, okay, I need to create buffer zones. We don't have any of that on our maps. He goes, I know where the easements are because I can go to the assessor's office and get them, but nobody has ever closed the loop. So we started working with them, and we got the fire department with them, and we hope to do that everywhere. It's going to take time to do that, but we're hoping that folks can be proactive about it as well.
First stage is just to make sure everything's safe now, and then start working on it.
And that's what we've been doing for the last 5 years. We've been testing everything, and we feel that this is the last big thing that we need to do, and it's going to be maintenance from here on out.
So on your applications for Knoll Vista and Valley, you designate the native oak for replacement, but you're not as specific for 479 and 484 Walsh.
Why don't we take that on each individual item when we get to
Okay.
each
Oh,
one?
sorry.
Just the overview, and then we'll go down
Gotcha.
each one. Then we can actually go on record for each individual item. All right, anything else in terms of an overview? So that you got down to each individual
No, no.
address?
No, we're
Yeah, and just remember, we feel that it looks like there will be a couple more permits after this one. And there are a few folks that we have talked to that we have not come to an agreement with, it's just a handful after that. And as we get agreements with them, we will come back in front of you. So we see that after this, at the most, there would be 7 more permits, I guess. I mean, I'm saying if the other
Right.
4, if
Yeah.
all the trees have, I don't think they all have their trees on, I'm just saying that's the number of people past the 2 that you should expect to see from us in the next couple of months.
Are those agreements part of the public record with the agreements
Yeah,
with the
they're private.
property owners?
Those
They're
are private
private.
contracts.
Yeah. And we have told the homeowners if they wanna share that contract with anybody, they can. We're not saying this, they are private contracts, but we're more than happy to share that information, but we have to have the homeowner's permission, and we've told them that we would always give it.
Okay, all right, so now we'll go to the individual items now. And I do have a way, a new approach on how I'm gonna handle my weekend project with my wife. I'll just tell her All right, so.
It buys you 48 hours. 48 hours before you
That'll
pay.
buy me enough time.
Yep.
I appreciate it. All right, so, let's go to item 4B, which is the heritage tree removal permit for One Knoll Vista. There's a request for a heritage tree permit to allow removal of 1 tree. And, go ahead and any staff overview on that.
So for each of the items that will follow here on the agenda, I won't get into the basis of the request since I think we fleshed that out. I'll get into the specifics of what the tree is, where it's located, and what the recommended replanting provisions are as recommended by our town arborist. So for the property here at 1 Knoll Vista, the request is to remove 1 heritage tree. Specifically, it's a 16-inch valley oak tree, and it's located quite close to the intersection of Knoll Vista and Walsh Road. What the arborist has recommended in terms of a replanting is 1 48-inch box size native oak tree to replace the 1 oak that is proposed to be removed. There's no specification for where the tree is to be replanted. That theme would carry throughout the remaining 3 items as well. We'll get into the specifics of what those replanting details are, but the general approach of not specifying where that tree is to be located, that is to be worked out at the point between PG&E and the property owner with the arborist to give her final approval on as well. So the property owner is actually at 1 Knoll Vista. Let me back up a step. In terms of process for both this property and all of the remaining PG&E properties, as staff, we followed our standard protocol of mailing out notice of tonight's hearing to all property owners, including the subject sites within 500 feet. There was, I think, a bit of confusion with these property owners in terms of what trees they thought they had discussed with PG&E and what they thought they saw here on the application, and that has PG&E has worked with this property owner. Staff has answered their questions as well, so they are now clear in terms of what trees are proposed to be removed and which tree is before you tonight.
And this is the only one proposed in this for
Only heritage.
The only
sites.
heritage size tree, correct.
Yeah, right, okay.
So that would sum up the overview of the requested heritage tree that before you tonight, and the specific recommendation by our arborist in terms of replanting.
Let's see, so any questions to staff?
Well, in reading the packet, I want to make sure that we're looking at the right tree, and it was 9689, correct? Well, that's up for removal
It is
here.
9689, yes. This one.
Yep, okay.
Okay. Any questions, any other questions
Planning Commission find that the proposed removal of one heritage tree at 1 Knoll Vista in Atherton constitutes a matter of public safety, and that there is a probability of personal injury and or significant property damage as a function of proximity to the existing structures and objects of value and interference with utility services. For the reasons outlined in the staff report, and that the commission approve the tree removal with the conditions stated in the draft heritage tree removal certificate.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? None abstained? You can almost get a law degree just by saying that, motion. All right. All right. All right. Item 4C is the heritage tree removal at 9 Valley Road. Request for a heritage tree removal permit to allow removal of one tree, that is at 9 Valley Road. Let's make sure we're all on the same number of trees. All right, staff, on this one?
Yes, so this is a a little over 26-inch Coast Valley oak. It's noted as tree number 9664. This tree is also located along the front of the property. It's the tree at the very, if you're standing on Valley Road, the very right-hand side. At the end, you'll see there's some other trees noted for removal on their site plan as well. Again, the arborist is recommending one 48-inch box size native oak tree as the recommended replanting for the request.
And what about the other trees that are coming down?
The other trees proposed to come down are either non-heritage in size or have been determined to be dead or dangerous by our town arborist.
I mean, from the standpoint of the offset of replacement of trees.
There's been no detail that's been shared with staff in terms of additional mitigation beyond what's recommended for the proposed heritage tree in front of you tonight, for those other trees that are proposed to be removed, or that are being removed, I should say.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
No.
All right, I'll open the public hearing on item 4C. Any comments on that? So I have a question then for the applicant, and that has to do with the for the offset of trees other than the ones that we're approving tonight, sort of the overall treeness of the environment. So what's happening on those?
Sorry. I don't know what exact mitigation that they are doing on their property at this time. We were coming through here to see what mitigation would happen with this tree. If they do not replant any trees or anything like that, then we would be working with the city arborists to figure out how to do mitigation. We would also ask for a little bit of help to convince them to put some trees, and it's along the front of the property, so I
Right.
assume they're gonna put some in there.
Right.
But we were waiting for this process on mitigation and what would be appropriate,
Okay.
and then come back.
So I just think we ought to just somehow have this running count in our heads,
Yeah.
or on a chart somewhere of tree, a total number of trees knocked down,
Yep.
per square foot, and
Right.
those replaced, and then just so that we end up with, some way to make us as treeful as we've been,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
It also kind of depends on if this particular tree is in the front of the house, or and if there's an appropriate spot.
Yeah.
No, and that's why I was saying we have listed every tree, no matter what the size,
Right.
even if it's a 2-inch DBH little
Right.
sapling, we have that listed on an Excel spreadsheet so that we can match those up. And as we've been working through the inventory, not everybody is replaced on those other 10 properties that we've worked, but we're keeping a running tally of that to get the city more tree count.
Right. And what I guess the volunteer tree that's starting to grow, that just happened to start growing miscellaneously. I'm not expecting those to be replaced, but
Yeah.
on some of these trees, they're 32 inches and they're not 40 or whatever, so they're a tree that you would notice gone. And that's
Right.
sort of
Yes.
that's sort of my line of thought on this is like, okay, so the tree, one, the public aspect of it is the fact that people will start noticing trees going away, right?
Yes.
Two is the notion that we're doing things to make sure it's still right,
Mhm.
right? That's the good neighbor aspect of it.
Mhm.
Right? So as long as you're working with staff and as these discussions continue, that we have some sort of idea of what the what the overall,
Yeah.
intent is. Now, and I understand it would be one for one, but it necessarily, because the tree was,
But
two
what,
branches to each
what
other.
we're doing that I think is very different that you've heard from PG&E is that not only are we looking to replace trees, but also replace the tree canopy.
Yes.
We know how important that is,
Right.
and we know that in our earlier interactions with other cities on other projects, we've never talked about tree canopy, and we want to make sure that we're saying that kind of stuff so that we're meeting that expectation.
Good, all right, as long as we're on the radar screen with that,
Yep.
keep that,
Yep,
that's
absolutely.
part of the discussion that I'm,
Yes.
that I'm fine.
Okay, I would agree with you, and when you say tree canopy, I think that is very important.
Yeah, no, it's a different concept. I've been trying to say that is what we want to do. We realize that we messed up when it came to policing our lines, and a lot of these trees, if we had done our job right years ago, a lot of these trees wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to take responsibility for that, figure out what we need to do to replace the trees, make sure we're keeping that tree canopy and that expectation, and also educate people as to what's going on and what it is to live with a gas transmission pipeline in their neighborhood.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that was a great point, and,
Yeah.
if it's missed or it leaves a scar, it's vacant, that's the canopy, something needs to be done.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions of the applicant? I'll close the public hearing then, bring it back to the commission for discussion and action as appropriate on item 4C, 9 Valley Road. I'm ready for a motion if anybody is ready to offer it. Okay, there you go. Right there.
I move that the planning commission find that the proposed removal of one heritage tree at 9 Valley Road in Atherton constitutes a matter of public safety, and that there's a probability of personal injury and or significant property damage as a function of proximity to existing structures and objects of value and interference with utility services for the reasons outlined in the staff report, and that the commission approve the tree removal with the conditions stated in the draft heritage tree removal certificate.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, passes 4-0. All right, item 4D, heritage tree removal permit on 479 Walsh Road, request for heritage tree removal permit to allow removal of 2 trees. And let's let it go with the staff report on this one.
Thank you. So these 2 heritage trees are both coast redwood trees. They are both located in the rear of this property. This is a flag lot that abuts the Sharon Heights Golf and Country Club. Both trees are quite tall as well, one being around 100 feet and one being slightly over 100 feet in height. In terms of the recommended replanting, the arborist has given a few options that, in her professional opinion, would serve as mitigation on terms of quantity and size. What those 2 options are would be either for the replanting to equate to 6 15-gallon and 4 24-inch or 2 15-gallon and 2 36-inch size native trees. Those 2 options would be in addition to other replantings that the arborist has already discussed with PG&E related to trees that were not in front of you tonight that are also going to be removed on these properties.
There's an extensive replanting.
Extensive replanting
These
plan.
are the extra ones.
These are the extra.
These are the homeowner's name associated with it, is that what that is? These ones that say one extra?
So the homeowner is aware of the application and of the replantings.
Okay,
So the recommendations for the 2 trees that you are reviewing tonight to be removed, the 2 tall coast redwood trees.
9,500, 94.99.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, number 9499, and the other tree is actually not numbered. It's the one on the plan that does not have a number associated with it. So if you look at the site plan,
Is that called the redwood?
it's the one in the, I guess I'd call it the bottommost corner that doesn't have a number next to it.
Which is, I think it's called, on these pictures, it's called one extra, right?
Oh, on that picture, yes, yes. And if you look at the actual site plan,
Yeah. Sure. All right. All right, that makes sense.
on the corner.
Okay, cool. I got it.
So the 6 15-gallon, 4 24-inch size, or 2 15-gallon, 2 36-inch, in already 2 24-inch and 1 36-inch native trees.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, any questions of staff?
No.
I actually, I meant to ask this, earlier. Does it make any difference that on the application, the term vegetation is used, vegetation removal versus tree removal?
I think that's just what PG says for removal, it's just vegetation removal.
I'm
Sounds,
just wondering if it matters if there's
Yeah.
consistent language.
sounds less tall than what's gonna come.
Yeah. In my mind, it sounds much softer
That's right.
than a 100-foot tree.
Yeah, I think a question for Sally in that.
Let me open up the public hearing.
Oops, okay, go
All
ahead.
right, good, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing, if the applicant, go ahead. Anything from the applicant first? All right, good, you got a question for the applicant?
No, but this was for Sally.
Okay,
So it's more for staff.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
right. So why in this particular application do we not have specifics on the trees to be replanted? It just says native trees, whereas we have the native oak in the other application.
So per the planning code, oaks are supposed to be replaced with oaks,
Okay?
and otherwise, any species can be replaced with other trees that are removed.
Oh, that's
So I
good.
didn't specify,
That's
just
good.
because I'm just doing the basic code.
Gotcha.
That'd be interesting for the tree subcommittee, you might wanna think about that going
Absolutely.
forward.
Right, because it would be nice if we could replace with
Right.
native.
Right, right. Okay, yeah, sorry about that, I thought that was.
No, but it would be nice to have,
Yeah,
especially with the redwoods.
right. All
Anyway,
right,
thank you, Sally.
any questions of the applicant?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
A couple of significant trees on this property. So I was just wondering what kind of comments, feedback, opposition at all you had during your discussions with the property owner on this, because these are pretty significant trees.
Good.
Bring the person to talk to. That's right.
All right,
That's why we're here.
We finally got the star coming up, all right? Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Emily Sloan. I'm the customer outreach specialist for this program on the peninsula. So I met with this customer multiple times. As you can imagine, the first conversation was a bit shocking. They are large trees, and they were within that zone that they needed to be replaced. But we did not pressure them to sign the agreement. We explained that this was a partnership. We wanted to collaborate with them and make sure that they were comfortable with the way that we planned to leave the property once those trees were removed. So they understood the safety aspect, they appreciated it, and now they're ready for the work to happen.
And they signed the agreement?
They did.
Okay. All right. I have a question while you're up here. What happens to the redwood? I mean, does it just end up like wood chips, or does somebody take it and turn it into a cabin and tile?
It depends on what the property owner wants us to do with it. We can mulch and spread it on the property, or we can.
There's some
take it.
environmental concerns where we could use a lop and scatter method, and we do discuss that with the homeowner. Sometimes they do want it hauled off. We have been giving some of the redwood to the high school wood shop.
All right.
We also, in this case, I'm not sure exactly what's going to do, but we have had discussions with folks about, we will cut it into firewood, we will stack it, we will make sure that it is hauled away in an environmentally responsible way. We do have some, something like this. I will throw in that there are some fire chiefs that want that so they can train their men and women on chainsaw and how to use chainsaws. So we're looking for every kind of opportunity to best use it. This is the part of the job that we don't like, is when we have to look at these trees and we realize this is a big problem, you know. So we're trying to make the best we can,
All right.
and that's how we handle it.
Yeah, I just think like if I had these things on my property, I'd probably turn them into a pool house or something, so I'd use the wood on every group.
Yeah.
Right, okay, all right, thank you very much, I'm glad you finally got up here. All right, good, so, we are on, item 4D on 479 Walsh Road. Any other comments from anybody, before I close the public hearing? I'll close the public hearing, bring it back, to the commission for discussion and action as appropriate. Any questions of staff or comments? This is the one I was feeling worst about. I walked up and I saw those trees back there, and I went, oh, man, those guys have been up there for everything, I mean,
fast growing, so I can
Mhm.
see that, but this is the one I have a problem with too, because redwood roots are very shallow, so I really don't think they would cause a problem with the pipeline, but, so that's why I denied it.
And that's kind of what I was thinking too. I have a few redwoods on my property and they were out like
They
this and they were
spread
out.
and they're shallow.
And pipeline's been there since what, 1938 or so? Is that?
Yeah, I believe that's what it is. And can I talk during this part?
Yeah.
I wasn't
I'll be
sure.
over-
I don't think so.
No, I like the fact that you know
Oh.
Robert's rules, that's good.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like I said before, this is the one where none of us are happy about. In this case, when you have a redwood directly over the pipe, the roots are shallow. The redwood actually depends on other redwoods to link up their roots to stay standing. What we find in cases like this is that there is a highly increased lightning risk around the pipe. There is also issues if there is an emergency with a leak and having to dig to the pipe with those roots spread across the top. And it's really digging through the roots that becomes the problem. And so when we approach this, a lot of people say, okay, well, the roots haven't interacted with the pipe and you tell me there's a problem with the roots, you know, or it becomes, it's a first responder issue in trying to access the pipe in case of an emergency and reducing that response time. It's those two in concert that create the issue. And when we first started this program, before I was on the program, we were pretty much almost clear cutting. And that's when we slowed down our program and we said, when we look at our utility standard, is there a way that there are certain trees that can stay around the pipe? And that's when we came up and we looked, and our integrity management team looks at those two factors. There's actually a total of 12 factors, 13 factors that go into it, but those are the two main ones. And if we can kind of assess that risk based on that, and what is the problem with this being in a backyard to get equipment there, or what do we need to do for response times around there? In this case, where the location of the tree is, it makes it really tough. And so it's really the two things working in concert. It's not just the tree roots, and I get that. It's tough. But like, for example, in San Mateo City, we had a pipe leaking off into a sewer. It took us 4 hours to dig through the tree roots to get to the pipe. And that created a really dangerous situation. You have fire and police that are protecting the area. If there was another emergency at that time, they'd have to pull on mutual aid, where if we could have gotten that response time down to an hour, we would have been in a much better place. So the only thing I can say that out of all of this is, you know, at least we're looking at not every single tree. We're looking at these specific trees. We're trying to do this in a very measured way, make sure you understand what our thinking is and why we're there. And unfortunately, this location's it's a little remote, and the lightning risk. I've had a couple of redwoods in San Jose and a few other places where they were just a single redwood right over the pipe, and the lightning risk in that case, we've even had our engineers go, how did something not go wrong? Even though we know that the roots hadn't hit the pipe. So it's a case-by-case basis, and unfortunately, we're in this situation.
Okay. The lightning aspect of it, that I haven't thought of, that makes a lot of sense, because that just is a conduit.
It's a conduit, yeah.
So another question for Sally.
Yeah, go ahead. Close the public hearing, we'll get back to that.
So if that line was laid, say, in the mid to late 30s, it's possible those redwoods could have been planted 15 or 20 years later
Yes,
and be the size they are now,
yes, yep,
with how rapidly they grow.
yeah.
So they could have been planted, say, in 55.
They probably were planted, yeah, at 55, or they could have been planted right after the pipeline. If it was a new, new development, they laid the pipeline and then planted the trees, not thinking of the consequences.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Of Stephanie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it possible to add to this motion to specify, adding that, making sure that 2 of the replantings are redwoods, so we go 1 for 1 on the red? Can we specify that in this particular motion?
Certainly.
And Sally, I don't know what kind of.
That will be taken as a recommendation to them, because they don't have to ask us for
okay.
approval.
But we'll encourage.
All right, very good.
And then Sally, I don't know, would you recommend the size, like there are,
I mean,
I
I
don't
think
know,
I think 2 24-inch boxes would be fine
for redwoods?
for redwoods. Yeah.
Okay.
So just keep in mind that this puts PG in a situation where they have to go back and talk to the homeowner because they already have the agreement with them, and if the homeowner came up with a design that was, because it's right there by their pool, I can see, I'm looking at the top
Well,
of
then
that. You know,
we
so-
don't change the motion.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
so but, just so, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting it in the motion, and then PG&E says, hey, they asked us to do this, so is that, what do you think about that? And then they.
So it's just merely a recommendation.
Yeah, well, that's all it is,
Mhm.
like, they don't have to be here, they can leave right now and be okay if they wanna do.
If I may,
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
they did offer and we did accept to
Yeah.
go through this
Right,
process. So,
right.
so I don't wanna
Yeah,
go that
right.
far, but yes.
Yeah,
In spirit.
yes. All right, so for 79 Walsh Road, so with that, then, we can put that in the motion, that allows them to go back and say that the city asked for this to be 1-for-1, and then.
Just on the two redwoods.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're in motion?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to reword it. Stephanie, if you have any suggestions of just adding that.
I think we could add, as amended with
to
additional
24 inch.
recommendation, species be a redwood. Because
Okay.
I think we have the size already.
We do.
Yeah,
We have the
encompassed
lot
in them,
size.
yes.
To include two of those to be redwoods.
Right.
So I guess I'll have to read this and make it up here. I move that the planning commission find that the proposed removal of 2 heritage trees at 479 Walsh Road in Atherton constitutes a matter of public safety, and that there is a probability of personal injury and or significant property damage as a function of the proximity to existing structures and objects of value and interference with utility services. For the reasons outlined in the staff report, and that the commission approve the tree removals with the conditions stated in the draft heritage tree removal certificate. In addition, 2 of the replanted trees to be redwoods. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. All right, we have a
Make those
motion.
up.
We have a motion, a second, any comment?
Regrettably, I second.
All right, motion and a regrettable second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? 4-0. All right, Heritage Tree, this is item 4E, Heritage Tree Removal Permit number 484 on Walsh Road. Request for Heritage Tree Removal Permit to allow the removal of 2 trees on this address. All right, we'll go with the staff report.
Thank you. So these 2 trees, you have one coast oak tree numbered 9407 and one redwood tree numbered 9408. Both of these trees are located at the front of the property along Valley Road. They vary a bit in size, with the oak being 45 feet in height and the redwood being much taller at 74 feet in height. In terms of the recommended replanting, again, the arborist has given options for the recommended replantings, that it be either 3 15-gallon and 2 24-inch box-sized trees, or 1 15-gallon and 1 36-inch. Again, we haven't specified species. We've required them to be native. Should the commission want to amend that motion to equate for the redwood, again, we could certainly amend the draft certificate to encompass that.
Okay. Any questions of staff? These are aren't these on the side of the property technically?
They are the side of the property, but along the public
Yes.
right-of-way on
Right.
Valley Road.
Right, thank you.
Or, excuse me, well,
All right. Any questions of staff? All right. Go ahead and open up the public hearing. Any comments from the applicant? All right, anyone else here to speak on the item? No. So, any questions of the applicant? Then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for action, or discussion action if appropriate. The only thing I'll comment on this one, a couple of these pictures in here are good examples of what I wouldn't expect necessarily be required as a replacement 1-for-1. Like 10146, and 10147, these are like uproot, they're sort of volunteers. So in the grand scheme of things, there's a whole group of them, and I'm sure that there are volunteers that are sort of like out there in this group. So those are not the ones I'm talking about necessarily gotta make a motion? All right, good. There's one redwood tree on this one, is that correct?
One redwood proposed for removal, yes.
I move that the planning commission find that the proposed removal of 2 heritage trees at 484 Walsh Road in Atherton constitutes a matter of public safety and that there's a probability of personal injury and or significant property damage as a function of proximity to existing structures and objects of value and interference with utility services for the reasons outlined in the staff report, and that the commission approve tree removals with the conditions stated in the draft heritage tree removal.
Good. And you wanted to have the redwood replaced with a redwood, recommend that we
And
do.
the recommendation that we want the one.
All right, moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, 4-0, no abstentions. So with that, we will say thank you for partying with us tonight again. And we'll look forward to seeing you, the magic bus arrive some other time in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and continue on. Good. All right, so we have commissioners' reports, item 5.
I have nothing to report.
You have nothing, you even.
Well, I missed the last Civic Center
I was gonna
advisory
say,
committee meeting.
did they raise $23 million?
I have no idea.
All right, good, so we don't have any, no commissioners report, okay, good, staff reports?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to pose an item for consideration discussion by the commission in terms of how your packets are distributed in the spirit of trying to become green and reduce our paper usage. I wanted to gauge the sentiment of the commission. If we were to simply distribute the staff report and all of the attachments via our online link and provide you a hard copy of the full-size plans, continue to do that, but not provide hard copies of the staff reports and all the other attachments. Wanted to gauge your feelings on that. And sometimes there's color documents and maybe there's weighty reports that accompany an application, but we're just trying to try to gauge or assess ways that we could potentially reduce our paper usage.
Personally, I'm all for it. I actually wondered why we, do have so much paper.
I rather like having all the paper, which I'm telling the board tonight because I didn't bring along the reports and thought, now I know I should have. If it were online, I'd have trouble reading the recommendation. Those great big giant plans are helpful to see, but they do take a lot of paper, and I think are probably less necessary than the photos we get within the packet of, I'm not sure the terminology there, but the individual proposals.
Yeah, I use these documents and I go take them out to the site and I write on them and things like that, so I actually have notes on these things,
Yes.
so. But these I don't look at very much. So what I would say is that I wouldn't need these. I could come to the office and look at these if I had a question on something. Since most things I don't, but I use this almost exclusively.
I agree.
So I would say keep this and don't distribute that. But I don't know. Certain.
So what you're saying is you would have this online? Is this packet online?
Yes, as we do now.
And anything else would be here that night, such as these, or you'd eliminate these as well?
We could do it in any ways. The first approach that I was asking was if the whole packet, which
Right.
includes the plans in a reduced size form,
Okay.
that just be distributed online, that hard copies were not provided, that the only hard copy document that we would provide would be the full size set of plans that the applicant distributes. But from
The
what
other
I'm
way
hearing,
around,
it sounds
so
like
I would
the
prefer.
majority sounds like the preference would actually be to continue to provide the hard copy of the packet, which includes the application, the staff report, all of the attachments, a reduced size set of the plan. And if you'd like, we can certainly have a full size set of plans here at the meeting we can have maybe 1, 2, 3, however many copies, perhaps less than what we require now from the applicant to submit so that we can use them should it warrant itself at the meeting.
But if we access this online,
Mhm.
we can pick and choose what we wanna print out at home.
You could,
Right,
yes.
so, I mean, a couple of these preliminary pages we might not need. Maybe a couple of the letters from residents, you read them at home, you get a gist of what they're saying. If it's important, you can print it out. If it's a letter that says, I agree, and doesn't have any pertinent details, you could not print it out. So you can come in with a packet of, say, anywhere from 3 pages to maybe 5 or 6, and eliminate a lot of these. I don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Go ahead.
sorry, sometimes the plans, provide more schematics than what we're actually deciding on.
Yes.
So perhaps we just include the relevant portions of the plan, if they're provided to you that way.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm for it, you can pick and choose what you wanna print, and the stuff that's
Yeah.
important to you, if you need to bring it to the meeting that night.
I'm still more comfortable getting the packet
Okay.
myself. I don't need the map. The maps I don't use as much, and if I have a question about a map, like if it's a situation where there's a big house and with a 7,500 square foot basement or something like that, I'll probably come down and I'll ask you for it. But I do take these out to the site and I do read through them right there. I'll sit there in my car and read through the comments and then circle something, and then I actually bring them here with circles and notes and things like that on them. And this one in particular, I did that a lot. I was looking at each tree and saying, okay, that one's okay, this one I don't understand, and I'll put a question mark on it, things like that. So it's a matter of who's printing in my case. I would be printing out the packet, because also I wanna see what people are gonna say to me that they saw in the packet. And I wanna note it, so I'm still, and I use iPad and everything else now, so it's not like that, but this one thing, I do use that as a sort of a study guide.
I think it's good if you have one of the big plans here for us, even if you don't give them to us individually ahead of time,
Okay.
1 or 2 copies.
You can make the story
Yeah, I
graphic
agree
or
with
shorter too.
Eric, I like that plan.
That's a good thing.
Okay.
Take out prepositional phrases or something. Lighten it up. We'll try it that way for a while, and then
Yeah.
we'll weed ourselves down. And there might be a situation where we come up with a lightweight version. Also, we could play around with maybe the format where there's the summary overview and then there's something else. I don't know. I'll start looking at it for if I were gonna eliminate 2/3 of the paper, how would I think about doing it?
Yeah.
And see if we can come up with a way to handle that.
Okay, so we'll continue to distribute hard copies of the full packet, but not a full-size set of plans, but we will have that available here at the meeting.
You're right.
And if anybody wants it and the change, just please, of course, let me know, and that's no problem.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right, good. And so we'll keep those in business for a little.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? You had some things you were talking about in terms of planning things coming up that.
Oh, sure, of interest perhaps to the commission.
Yeah.
We'll be bringing forward the final administrative draft climate action plan to the city council at the October meeting. The climate action plan will, if and when the council does finally adopt that, would be integrated into the general plan. I was mentioning to the chair earlier, if you recall, gosh, I guess it was probably about a year or so ago, we had brought up the proposed plan for staff to reopen the different elements of our general plan for updating and enhancing. I think the last update is in the early 90s, so that time has come. So we'll be looking at this comprehensively, and you'll see a lot of the draft climate action plan programs and policies are certainly leading towards more green and sustainable type practices that you may see coming forward in terms of town policy, town programs that may be created. It's interesting.
Like getting